It's time for another daily drop here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, rolling solo with you this afternoon. And just as a quick reminder, this show is sponsored by our friends over at BetterHelp. We will talk about them later in this daily drop. Football season's almost here, guys. I can't begin to tell you how excited I am. I know many of you are excited as well. But when you think about it from a media standpoint, and we've been grinding since camp started, and really it goes back to the ACC kickoff in Charlotte, where you kind of feel like you're in a football cave for about 3 weeks, and then you start to come out and you look back and say, man, the season's still a couple of weeks away. Well, now we're just a little bit more than a week away from the Tar Heels taking on South Carolina in Charlotte, 7:30 p.m. kickoff, ABC primetime. ESPN Game Day will be there. It's considered by many the biggest game nationally that day. Not the biggest game of the first opening weekend, or the week one, or they call it, there's week 0 and then week 1. Week 0 stuff, stupid, just call it week 1, and then this would be week 2. But it's one of the biggest games that weekend, maybe the biggest one that day, and obviously a huge game for North Carolina. Jacob and I will dive deep into that game next week when we do our preview podcast. But what I wanted to do here in this one is I decided it's really time to look ahead to the season. We've been doing a lot of position group things, a lot of various discussions about small little niches of the team, of the program. But right now I think it's smart to look ahead, fun to look ahead. So I decided to break down the season into 3 parts. And what I'm going to do here is give you the first of 3 parts of the Daily Drop where we're going to look ahead to the season. The first part are the first 4 games before the open date. The second part, which I'll discuss in tomorrow's drop, will be the next 6 games, 5 of which are at home, and a road game in there at Georgia Tech. And then the last part will be the last 2 games, which are both road contests and obviously enormous games. It could mean a ton by the time the Tar Heels get there, and that's at Clemson and at NC State to close out the regular season. So what I want to do here is talk about the importance of the first 4 games. I like to frame seasons. I like to say, okay, here's a part, here's a part, here's a part, and this is why those sections are important looking ahead and what can be achieved when you look at this, at the schedule like this. So let's go ahead. Versus South Carolina, like I just said, Charlotte, Bank of America Stadium. I hope it's a full house. I hope that for both programs. It's going to be a bad look if there are a lot of empty seats. The last 3 times these 2 schools have played in Charlotte, not even close to full. Bad look. I know it was a gazillion degrees there 4 years ago in 2019 when they opened there. At least this is at night. Shouldn't be nearly as bad. Also, I think the excitement of it being a primetime game on ABC with game day there, I think has helped elevate the importance of this game, certainly to the North Carolina fan base. And therefore, I think more Carolina fans will be there. I think that they understand the importance of this. So hopefully it's a full house, a 50-50 crowd. It'll be a great environment and certainly a lot of fun for the people on TV and the people that are there. And as for us in the media, it's all about information, guys. I tell you all the time, I'm about intel. So this game will provide us plenty of intel about where the Tar Heels are. And we don't really know where they are. We think we have an idea where they might be, but that often doesn't turn out to be so. The staff has an idea where they might be, but I guarantee you, Mac Brown, Gene Chizik, Chip Lindsey, they're not sitting in a room right now saying, okay, I know this is all going to happen. They don't know. There's so much uncertainty about an opening game, especially when you're playing against a good team that can beat you, a club that some people think is a sleeper to contend, at least for the second spot in the SEC East. Nobody's going to supplant Georgia over there. So this is a very difficult game. Some call it a fork in the road game for North Carolina, that it will sort of set the tone for the season, similar to what happened at Virginia Tech a couple years ago. But I warn that the hype is not as high for this group as it was for that one. And I think this is a better team. I think Carolina's a better quarterback. I think the offensive line might be better. I think the defense will be better. I think the leadership on this team is better. It's an older, more experienced team. I think the off-season chip on the shoulder after losing 4 in a row to close the season, as opposed to the excitement of the Orange Bowl. I think this club doesn't feel as good about itself as that club did, and I think that's a good thing when you're burning through the off-season. So this is a fork in the road game, and it could set the tone for the season. A loss doesn't derail things. Their goals are still in sight, but I think a loss would be damaging for this club, certainly depending on how it goes. A win simply gives them a huge opportunity for the next week at home against App State. Dangerous game because App beat them in Chapel Hill a couple of years ago, and it was a 63-61 fiasco last year. And I say fiasco because that's not football when that many points are scored. The Tar Heels should be ready to go in that one. Again, the chip on the shoulder. The defense is widely criticized, regularly criticized, and in part because it has never escaped that 40-point fourth quarter. It has a chance to cut the cord to that in the second week of the season, 5:15 game, ACC network at Keenan. They'll have a chance maybe late in that game to show off the new lighting system that they have there. So that's an important game too. Then the next week, they got Minnesota in town. Physical Big Ten team, won 9 games a year ago, a club in which its fan base views this as a huge game. It's an opportunity. Minnesota doesn't go down to the South very often. It's an opportunity to go south, go to someone else's stadium. You're going up against a Heisman guy, and they're a physical team. They want to bring some of that ruggedness down to Chapel Hill to deal with the finesse of the Tar Heels. And that'll be an interesting matchup. I think that'll be a game like the opener that will challenge Carolina's physicality. Gene Chizik constantly talks about violence. He wants violent players. It's a violent sport. He wants more violence. That game will challenge how violent this group can be. And so will the fourth game the next week at Pittsburgh. So they get 3 games in a non-conference schedule. If they win those 3, they're really well positioned to do a lot of things. One, if you can beat South Carolina, that'll help you if the Gamecocks go 4-4, 5-3 in the SEC. It'll also help Drake. If Drake has a big game against a club that causes issues in what is considered the best conference, it's going to help him. It's also going to help the perception of the Tar Heels if they win that game. If they beat Minnesota and the Golden Gophers go ahead and have a nice year in the Big Ten, and the defense is pretty stout, Drake has a huge game against them, that's going to go a long way in giving this team early credibility. Beat South Carolina neutral site, beat Minnesota at home. They both have good years. That's going to stay there. This team will carry that through the course of the season. It will give them credibility because not a lot of clubs play 2 Power 5 non-conference games. Carolina will do that. So week 4, they go to Pittsburgh. Very dangerous game. Physical team. You could argue Pittsburgh has been the second best program in the ACC the last 6 years or so. And Pat Narduzzi's done a really good job there. The program has totally taken on his personality. And what's interesting is there should be a good crowd for this one. The Tar Heels' last 4, I think, trips up to Pittsburgh have been Thursday nights. Rain, cold weather, 25,000 people in the stadium. It stunk up there. It's been a terrible environment. And I don't think Pittsburgh was helped much. And Carolina's had a little bit of success up there. Now, I think you're going to look at plus 50,000 in that game. It's a huge game as far as who is that other team that might push Florida State and Clemson. It's also a barometer game. Given how the first 3 games go, especially if they're wins for Carolina, they have a chance to be 4-0, picking up a really tough road game, getting that out of the way. How many teams in the country could go into the end of September with wins over South Carolina on neutral site, Minnesota at home, and at Pittsburgh? And oh, by the way, the Patsy is App State. I'm going to hit on the other 2 games, this 4-game stretch, in just a minute. But first, let's go ahead and hear from our friends over at BetterHelp.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Sometimes in life, we're faced with tough choices, and the path forward isn't always clear. So whether it's dealing with, decisions around your career, maybe your relationship, or anything else, whatever it may be, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life so you can move forward with confidence and excitement and trusting yourself to make these decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice it, the better and easier it gets. I know for me sometimes, as somebody who uses therapy, that sometimes talking things through with someone is just incredibly helpful. And we can all get in our own heads a little bit too much sometimes. And getting out of that by getting feedback from a licensed and trained professional can bring a ton of clarity to your life. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, guys, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule, which is just so huge in my opinion, because convenience is just so big in today's world. And with BetterHelp, you can do everything online. So let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THI to get 10% off your first month. Again, that's betterhelp.com/THI to get 10% off your first month. Links in the description below. Back to the show.
So this is a wonderful opportunity for North Carolina to start out the season really on a strong note, go into an open date after Pitt before that stretch of games at home, mostly at home, and have a chance to be exposed for the things that are weak, that are weaknesses and need fixing against that quartet of teams. That'll happen. Then they get a week to fix it, and then they get to cruise into the next part of the schedule, which is what I will talk about tomorrow. We appreciate you guys stopping by. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow on the next Daily Drop right here on TarHeelIllustrated.com.